Thank you. Thank you again, Administrator Pruitt. And I appreciate my colleague in the chair bringing up this question from the perspective of many states. We're very grateful for California in setting higher air standards and that they've often moved the rest of us forward. I brought up CAFE standards before, and I just want to go back on that a little bit. I'm concerned about some of the changes in the administration around CAFE standards, greenhouse gas emissions, and the relationship to that, and the idea that there would be any loosening of that standard. I think I look at clean air in kind of the big picture here. As I have told you ad nauseum, I come from the state of Maine. We're also at the end of the tailpipe when it comes to the Clean Power Rule, which clearly you disagreed with. We are one of the states where if there are coal-fired power plants, and I certainly sympathize with the coal miners and the challenges of those communities, but on the other hand, we get the bad air. We have high rates of childhood asthma. We have red air alert days for a state that you think of as pristine and clean and has a huge tourism industry. It's surprising that we would end up with this bad air. So I have no idea why would you want to roll back emission standards on vehicles. There's always, of course, pressure from the industry, but there are a lot of studies and statistics that show that we've all saved a lot of money for having higher fuel efficiency standards. I know Mainers are very pleased that they pay less money at the gas pump. We have amazing technology now, and we have jobs that have been created, whether it's hybrid cars or electric cars. I can say that I drive a Volt. It's a hybrid car, and I have to fight over my electric parking space in the garage now, and I'm getting kind of grumpy about it because it didn't used to be anybody else down there. But I think there are Republicans taking my space, and I want to do something about that. But, I mean, there's money in this to be had, and all car companies are moving to this. So I guess my question is, it seems to me you don't have, just like climate change, on this one, you don't have our best interests at heart, that you're not on our side on this. And I want to throw in there and give you some time to talk about it. The other thing is this idea that the administration is rolling back the once in, always in policy. And I know that gets a little obscure and complicated, but basically when we have identified sources of pollution before, we've forced them to stay with any reductions that have been made, to make it simple. And so in January, you also announced you're going to roll back that rule. It just seems to me, that you don't take this seriously, that there's something going on in our atmosphere, whether it's about the public health and asthma and all the concerns we have around that, or climate change and the emissions in our atmosphere. And why are you on the other side of this?
Thank you for a couple of things about each of those issues. As you know, the time period that those standards are typically set are for 5 years. And in 2010-11 timeframe, the previous administration adopted those standards up till 2022-2025. And that's very difficult to predict. The market conditions, over that long period of time. What's the price of gas? What's consumer demand? All the issues that drive the decisions with respect to why the midterm evaluation was put in place. And so as the midterm evaluated in April of this year, the data that was reviewed showed that the assumptions made in 2011 didn't match what was in the marketplace in 2018 with respect to the fuel cost, the fuel demand, and other related issues. What we don't want to see happen is to set the standard so high, Congresswoman, that manufacturers manufacture cars that people don't purchase, because what happens is that people stay in older vehicles, which actually increases emissions, because they don't have the choice. We should be focused upon efficiency for cars that people are actually wanting to purchase. So as we go through this process, we've not concluded anything yet. All we did in the midterm evaluation is to say we need to evaluate that based upon current data. And there will be a proposed rule that will take place with DOT, and there will be a process where comments will be received and informed decisions will be made about whether the 54 miles per gallon, approximately, was appropriate.
Well, with all due respect, we do have a pretty good sense of what's happening. I mean, you hear from most car companies, they're moving to electric cars. There are people lined up to buy Teslas. There are people who are talking about electric tractor-trailer trucks. I mean, there is a movement in that direction. So to say that suddenly we're uncertain about it, or to say that somehow we should favor the oil and gas industry because, maybe there have been less sales or the price is going down. It doesn't make any sense to me. There was a lot of certainty in which direction we were going, and it seems to me you're reversing that decision.
The other area was it ozone? I can't remember.
My other question was around once in, always in.
Always in.
And you rolled that back in January.
And I think that's something, again, I'm not sure. My perspective on that is that you have major emitters and you have minor emitters under the statute. And previous policy said to those that were in the major emitter category that though they invested sometimes hundreds of millions of dollars to improve their outcomes, they always had to stay in that major emitter category. And to me, that's a disincentive.
My understanding was that they always had to comply with the level. They couldn't suddenly go back up again. They were required, once they'd reduced their emissions, to keep those emissions reduced.
They had to stay. They could never be.
They could never emit again.
You could never go in the minor emitter category despite investments you had made to reduce emissions. That seems to me to be a disincentive to companies across the country to invest to improve outcomes.
Seems to me a disincentive to pollute. And no matter, we're obviously at an impasse here, so we'll stop. But I just want to say, I don't know how the head of the Environmental Protection Agency can have so little concern about climate change, so little concerned about the impact on public health of these emissions, and make so many decisions to go in the opposite direction when it is clear we shouldn't be doing that. And for all of us who have constituents and people and public health to protect, you do not seem to be serving our interests.